I noticed about Meghan is that most of her friendships actually have a use-by date. They have an end date, which is highly unusual, particularly when you see the amount of friends that have a use-by date.
She slept with my husband. Those are not words you find in a tabloid headline written by an anonymous source. Those are not vague rumors whispered in a Reddit thread by a conspiracy theorist. According to multiple insiders within the Toronto elite, those are the specific, devastating words that Jessica Mulroney has been saying behind closed doors. They are words spoken with zero hesitation, spoken by a woman who has lost everything: her career, her public standing, and her marriage. And the woman she is accusing? It isn't a stranger. It isn't a random rival she met at a party. It is Meghan Markle. We are talking about the woman who stood in Jessica's kitchen, who wore the clothes Jessica styled, who held Jessica's children, and who sat Jessica in the front row of the most watched wedding in human history. For years, the world believed their friendship ended because of a race row on social media or a disagreement about white privilege. We were told they drifted apart because of bad optics and the pressures of royal espionage life. But tonight, we are tearing down that polite PR narrative. We aren't doing vague whispers. We are naming names and laying out a timeline that exposes a level of betrayal that is almost Shakespearean in its cruelty. This isn't just a story about a friendship breakup. This is an expose on how one of the most celebrated sisterhoods in modern celebrity culture allegedly collapsed into manipulation, infiltration, and an affair that detonated a family. Jessica Mulroney didn't just lose a best friend. She allegedly discovered that her best friend was the predator inside her own home. This is the story Meghan Markle prays never sees the light of day. But the silence is breaking, and the truth is finally starting to bleed through the cracks. To understand how ugly this betrayal is, you have to understand the power dynamic before the crowns, the castles, and the Netflix deals. Before Meghan Markle was a duchess, before she was a global icon preaching about compassion from a Montecito mansion, she was a cable TV actress in Toronto with a lot of ambition but very limited reach. She was a small fish in a big pond, filming Suits and trying to find her place in the hierarchy. Jessica Mulroney, on the other hand, was the shark. Jessica wasn't just a stylist. She was the queen bee of the Canadian social scene. She was married to Ben Mulroney, the son of a former prime minister. The name Mulroney in Canada carries the same weight as Kennedy in America. Jessica had the keys to the kingdom. She had the connections to the Trudeaus. She had the media contacts. She was the gatekeeper to the elite. When Meghan Markle entered her orbit, it wasn't an accident. It was chemistry, yes, but it was also opportunity. Jessica didn't just befriend Meghan, she built her. She became the scaffolding for Meghan's rise. She styled her wardrobe to look royal and sophisticated before Harry even arrived on the scene. She introduced her to the high society circles that actors usually can't access. She brought her into rooms where the real power players sat. This wasn't just brunch energy, this was infrastructure. Jessica gave Meghan credibility. And in return, Meghan gave Jessica the feeling of sisterhood. But as we now know, one of them was building a friendship, and the other was building a resume. Here is where the story shifts from social climbing to something much darker. Why would Meghan Markle, a woman focused on global fame, be interested in Ben Mulroney? He wasn't just Jessica's husband. Ben was a media heavyweight. He was the anchor of eTalk, Canada's biggest entertainment show. He had a direct line to the political elite and the media landscape of an entire country. For a woman like Meghan, who sources say is obsessed with networking up, Ben was a valuable asset. He offered legitimacy. He offered protection in the press. And according to the whispers now circulating through Toronto, Meghan realized she could get closer to the power by getting closer to the man holding it. The dynamic described by witnesses is the classic Trojan Horse. Meghan entered the house as Jessica's best friend, but she allegedly stayed for Ben. It started innocently enough, the Three Musketeers dynamic. They went on vacations together, they had dinners together, but sources say the energy shifted. Meghan began to lean on Ben for career advice. She needed his help with media strategy. She needed his perspective on the industry. And Jessica, trusting her sister implicitly, allowed it. She didn't see a threat. She saw her family helping her best friend. She didn't realize she was opening the door to the very thing that would destroy her marriage. We talk a lot about how Meghan allegedly love-bombed Harry, overwhelming him with attention, flattery, and mirroring his interests until he was hooked. Sources suggest she ran the exact same playbook on Ben Mulroney. Witnesses from that era describe Meghan as having an uncanny ability to make Ben feel like the most important person in the room, even when his wife was standing right there. It was the intense eye contact, the laughing a little too hard at his jokes, the way she would physically orient herself toward him during group dinners. She played the role of the cool girl, the actress who was fun, spontaneous, and understood the pressures of his media career in a way Jessica, a stylist, maybe didn't. She allegedly positioned herself as the damsel who needed Ben's guidance. This is a powerful drug for a man's ego. By asking for his advice, by acting vulnerable, she made him feel like a protector. While Jessica was busy fighting battles for Meghan, defending her in the press, organizing her life, Meghan was allegedly busy undermining the foundation of Jessica's home by becoming the fantasy woman who had no demands, only admiration. It was a masterclass in emotional infiltration. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this betrayal involves the children. Jessica's 3 kids, Ivy, Brian, and John, weren't just bystanders. They were props in the friendship. They called her Auntie Meg. They adored her. Meghan made herself an integral part of the family unit. By winning over the children, Meghan cemented her place in the house. How could Jessica ever suspect the woman who was reading bedtime stories to her daughter? How could Ben ever think ill of the woman who treated his sons like princes? This is what makes the alleged affair so devastating. It wasn't just a betrayal of a wife, it was a betrayal of a mother. When the friendship collapsed and Meghan walked away, she didn't just ghost Jessica, she ghosted the children too. The little boys who held her veil at the royal wedding, discarded. This behavior points to a terrifying ability to compartmentalize, to view a whole family not as human beings with feelings, but as a set of tools to be used and then put back in the box when the job is done. Relationships don't explode overnight. They erode over time. The alleged affair between Meghan and Ben wasn't necessarily a sordid one-night stand in a cheap motel that happened once. It was, according to sources, an emotional infiltration that crossed the physical line over time. We are talking about late-night calls that lasted hours, supposedly about strategy or PR crises. We are talking about shared hotel stays during press junkets or events where Jessica wasn't present. We are talking about a level of intimacy that made outsiders uncomfortable. People in their Toronto circle began to notice the lingering touches, the private whispers at parties, the way Meghan would focus entirely on Ben while Jessica was in the other room handling guests. There's a term for this, the work wife on steroids. Meghan positioned herself as the woman who understood Ben. And while Jessica was busy facilitating Meghan's rise, Meghan was allegedly busy servicing her own needs within Jessica's marriage. If Jessica ever felt a pang of jealousy, she likely suppressed it. You don't accuse your soulmate of hitting on your husband unless you have proof. And by the time Jessica had proof, it was too late. Every thriller has a moment where the villain reveals themselves. For Jessica Mulroney, that moment came in the summer of 2020. The world was on fire with social justice movements, and Jessica got into a messy, public spat with an influencer named Sasha Exeter. It was a bad look. Jessica was accused of white privilege and bullying. Almost overnight, Jessica's empire collapsed. She was fired from Good Morning America, her TV show was canceled, her brand deals evaporated. She was the most hated woman in Canada for a solid month. In that moment of absolute darkness, Jessica expected one thing: a phone call from her best friend, the woman she had defended for years, the woman she had helped climb the ladder, the woman who preached about kindness and compassion. But the phone didn't ring. Meghan Markle went silent. This wasn't a confused silence. It was a strategic execution. Meghan didn't just distance herself, she ghosted Jessica completely. Sources say this was the moment Jessica's stomach dropped. It wasn't just the pain of abandonment, it was the clarity of it. She realized that to Meghan, she was never a person, she was a utility. And now that she was radioactive, she was being discarded to protect the Sussex brand. But that silence hurt less than what was happening back home. While Jessica was crying in her bedroom, watching her career burn, her marriage was also disintegrating. The stress of the scandal cracked the already weakened foundation with Ben. And this is where the puzzle pieces snapped together. With the friendship dead, the blinders came off. Jessica began to look back at the last few years with fresh, cynical eyes. She remembered the nights Ben came home late after meeting with Meghan. She remembered the trips where the itineraries didn't quite match up. She remembered the texts that popped up on Ben's phone that were quickly swiped away. According to sources close to Jessica, she began to investigate her own life. She became a forensic accountant of her own marriage. And what she found was not ambiguous. She found a pattern of behavior that pointed to one conclusion. The closeness between Ben and Meghan wasn't friendship. It was intimacy. Jessica Mulroney has reportedly told friends that the betrayal was total. It wasn't just that Meghan abandoned her professionally, it was that she realized Meghan had been using Ben for validation and physical comfort while pretending to be Jessica's sister. The alleged affair was the ultimate extraction of value. Meghan took Jessica's connections, she took her style, and allegedly, she took her husband's affection, feeding off the validation until she found a bigger target in Prince Harry. If you think this sounds too evil to be true, you haven't been paying attention to Meghan Markle's history. This is not a one-off event. It is a behavioral algorithm. Look at the trail of bodies behind the Duchess of Sussex. Look at Trevor Engelson, her first husband. She used him to get her foot in the door of Hollywood. He gave her roles, he produced for her, he managed her career. And the moment she got suits and moved to Toronto, she mailed back her wedding ring via FedEx. Cold, efficient, discarded. Look at Cory Vitiello, the celebrity chef in Toronto. She lived with him, used his social circle, which introduced her to the high society of Canada. And the moment she met Harry, she broke up with Cory and ghosted him almost instantly. This is called monkey branching. You don't let go of the current branch until you have a firm grip on the next one. Jessica Mulroney and Ben Mulroney were simply a branch. Jessica was the branch for style and connections. Ben was the branch for media protection and male validation. Once she swung over to the Prince Harry branch, the Mulroneys were left to rot. Jessica's accusation that she slept with my husband fits perfectly into the profile of a narcissist who views people as objects to be used, consumed, and left behind. We need to talk about how insidious this specific type of betrayal is. It hides in plain sight. When a woman steals a husband by acting as the professional confidant, it leaves the wife paralyzed. If Jessica had complained back then, she would have looked crazy. Oh, you're jealous that I'm helping Ben with his script? You're insecure that we have a business meeting? Meghan allegedly used the cover of business to conduct the affair. Because Ben was in media and Meghan was an actress, they had a built-in excuse to be alone together. They had a built-in excuse to be texting at 1 a.m. Jessica, wanting to be the supportive wife and the supportive friend, authorized the very weapon that killed her marriage. She likely encouraged them to spend time together, thinking it was good for Meghan's career. The level of manipulation required to do that, to smile at the wife while seducing the husband, is chilling. So, why hasn't Jessica gone on Oprah? Why hasn't she written a tell-all book? Why is this story circulating in private rooms in Toronto instead of on the front page of the New York Times? The answer is fear and leverage. Meghan Markle is a powerful enemy. She has the Sussex Squad, online army, she has expensive lawyers, and she has the ability to spin any narrative into victimhood. If Jessica speaks out now, without a smoking gun that the public can see, she risks being painted as the jealous, racist, fallen friend trying to cash in on Meghan's fame. Meghan would play the victim card instantly, but the silence is thinning. Jessica, has lost her marriage. She has lost her career. She is a woman with very little left to lose. And as we know, a person with nothing to lose is the most dangerous person in the world. The reports are that Jessica is currently in a state of cold rage. She isn't screaming anymore, she is waiting. She is letting the rumors permeate the elite circles. She is letting the story build credibility through whispers. And Meghan knows this. This is why Meghan has never publicly attacked Jessica the way she attacked her father or her sister Samantha. She treats Jessica with a terrified silence because she knows that Jessica has the receipts. She knows that Jessica was there for the lost years. And she knows that if Jessica ever decides to sit down for a forensic interview, the fairy tale ends instantly. This story is currently living in the gray zone, the space between open secret and public scandal. But stories like this do not stay buried forever. The pressure is building. Jessica Mulroney is rebuilding her life, but she is doing it with a scar that will never heal. The accusation, "She slept with my husband," is the grenade that could blow the doors off Montecito. It reframes Meghan not as a feminist icon, but as a predatory force who destroys other women to get ahead. It challenges the entire brand of compassion and community that the Sussexes sell. We are watching a high-stakes game of chicken. Meghan is hoping that Jessica stays scared. Jessica is waiting for the moment where the truth will hurt Meghan the most. But make no mistake, the friendship didn't end because of a blog post about white privilege. It ended because one woman invited a viper into her home and realized too late that the viper was hungry. The timeline is laid out. The witnesses are talking. The patterns are undeniable. And the only question left is, when will Jessica Mulroney finally press the red button? Follow this story closely, because when the dam breaks, it won't be a leak, it will be a flood. And Meghan Markle might finally drown in the truth she left behind in Toronto.